Hey guys. Hey guys, how you doing? Okay, let's do this thing. Do one and we'll get busy on to a Yazr game that I found. Just me. Got this right here. Well, we'll see. Okay, so here we go. Okay, good. Okay. Let's do the London, we'll do Yazr's game. This is the Yazr Sarawak Grandmaster. He is playing the French. He plays. Reason I like his French games is they're a little different than the main line of the French, and so it's cool. Yeah, that was nice. D4, D5, and he takes, which is kinda usually what you play is there's the Tarrasch variation. There's also, let me see. I'm trying to see if I'm. See, that's not. No, let me see if you take. So you have the that's a Tarrasch variation. You also have potentially another Tarrasch variation. There's like 3 different Tarrasch variations. This is kind of a sideline, which is really good if you're wanting to kind of throw your opponent off a little bit. So usually what players play is knight f6. That's the normal. Then you get into something like that, and then the knight comes out and c5, c4, and sometimes you have b. And then if you want to go for more closed position, you just move there, and then you start your potential bind on the queen side. But if you're more for an open active, then you'd play there and have something similar to this. But Yasser wants to crack open the center as quick as possible. So the bishop's coming out. Attack the knight. The knight's weak, so he's attacking it. Now the knight's coming. This knight's coming in, and potentially with knight here. So if knight takes, knight here, knight takes, and then takes back, and you have a knight there. Okay, let's see here. So bishop e7. Okay, so he's going to fianchetto. Just in case he can retreat his bishop to b7 at this point. b6, b7. So that he doesn't have to worry about d5 coming with any problems with d5. Also, it allows for c5 to be played as well. You're wanting to, at this point, taking is best, because takes, and then you bring your queen out. Now you're able to connect your rooks, which you're into a middle game, and black's probably slightly better here. Not much, but a little bit better. He's got more, his pieces are a little bit more compact. White has better bishops, so I might even give white the advantage here. Yeah, I think white's better in this line. Queen here, queen there actually holds the bishop and the knight. This wins a piece on the spot. Let me see here. Thinking that, okay. It takes f e5. Just keep the pressure. And this takes rook b8. F. This was a mistake here. As he takes, and there's no way to prevent basically back rake mate. I guess there might be, let me see here. How could we actually... Well, maybe queen here. Queen f3 might be the only way. I'm trying to see if that's right. I want to make sure. Oh, okay. Had the right idea. H3. Kind of a little hard to win this. So, yeah, it's basically over. Alright. We'll head into our London system. This is the London system Slav with b4 for not B, and the b3 for white. You usually don't play b3, pawn b3, but in this line you do. It's okay. So d4, knight f6, and we're entering into the Slav. And here, there's no way of getting our... See, we'd love to get our knight here. If this pawn hadn't been pushed, we can actually play knight c3. So if something like here, or let's see, here, 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 not there. How do we want to do this? Well, instead of there, maybe that. Maybe that's it. If we were to play C3, and then let's say we just supported, we played here. This is an idea. That if takes, and now you're threatening to actually win the queen here. So, and that point there. So you have a lot of attack, but so we gotta delete that. We'll delete that. B3 is played. Usually you don't play B3, but because C6 is played, you don't have your knight to B5 idea with an attack here. So that's kind of a forced line that you have to go down. Okay, so let's see here. 3 there, he takes, but actually there's a line that instead of white playing bishop to d3, there's knight f3, e6, bishop d3, bishop retreats back, castles. It's not as good as the other line. I think it's about the same, but hold on, let me see. Let me see what. Okay. All right, here we go. It's on the wrong page. Okay, there. And then after all these moves, the move sequences there that's happening. Takes, and then a4. The advantage that white gets is space, queenside space, and a grip on e5 right here, this pawn here, because he has three pieces, or 2 pawns and a piece guarding it, so there's no way for e5 to be reached for black. And this is a problematic sitch for black as well. But d3, and then takes, queen takes, and knight f6. So we have to take a look here. Okay. The idea is, if you think about it, white has more space, has more pieces in the center. Black's more cramped. So if we're looking at who's ahead, white is. Yeah, this b3 actually does have a point later on in the game. Actually, right about now, c4 is played, because now b3 allows for that c4, and then a6. Excuse me. Queen pins the pawn. Of course, you guys see that, to the c pawn to the queen. Knight bd2, and that's a dubious move. They're saying that bishop e7 would have been actually a better idea, and then castles. And at this point, let's see here. This is really good for white due to his extra space. Do you see how he has extra space in the center and on the queen side? So his pawns are pointing towards the king side, and so he has a lot more space. The queen's offside. The knight really has no points of entry except here, and then really doesn't have anything there. Potentially he could play knight to f6, but that's not really much of a problem because we can bring our knight in. So what happens is he plays, of course, back here he plays there, we play there, and then he plays knight, which is dubious. We play h4, which is an interesting move. There's also bishop to e5, knight f6, which attacks, bishop g3, knight takes, g takes, and now we can actually take scope on the e5 6 pawn, because there's no, this now is the new base pawn on this side of the board, on the king side. This pawn does have 2 protectorates, but e6 is now a target, and that's actually good for white, because white's planning on going e4 pretty soon anyways, and he's going to crunch open the center and potentially play rook to e1, probably the f rook to e1 with check, and black's going to kind of be pretty bare to the world for an attack. So knight to f4 was played, bishop to e7. That's actually the best move. There's knight takes, pawn takes, g, and then rook at f to e1. Remember what we talked about? The attacking the half open file. And also, if he castles, which is a horrible mistake, you go knight to g5, and this picks up material because of knight to f7. There's a potential idea, rather than say we play there and then he plays bishop to g, f5 is a huge attack. That's an exclam move. G takes, queen takes, knight f3, and then we retreat back. And white has a huge bind. Black's suffering from his, basically, where to place his king. Where do you place the king? If you castle here, this whole open file's open for the attack. If you castle queenside, you have our queen landing right in here, and then potentially we can get a queenside attack going. So where do you put the king? That's why taking that's why taking this there instead of going to bishop e7 would be a bad idea. Knight h2, not knight, bishop h2, h6. Let me see, h6, e4, pawn takes, knight takes, and so now we're getting our pieces closer. We're inching closer and closer to the king. This knight has acquired from d2 to e4, so it's getting close. We're slowly getting there. The king's like, I don't feel too safe. Black's king is, so he castles. But then we go g4, and we're like, he's like, is this possible? Yeah. And then we go knight takes f6. Knight takes f6. And that's an idea. There's also bishop takes, you're wondering, g5, h takes g5, h takes g5, bishop to e7, and then king to g8 with, I believe that, let me see, did I put the exclam mark there? Yeah, I didn't put a exclam mark, I apologize. Okay, there we go. This actually allows for the infiltration of the rooks for mate. So g2 says, I have all the time in the world. Your queen's offside. How's it going to get in? It doesn't have really any points of entry. I have that covered, that covered. You could go here or there, or maybe here, but there's really nothing. So everything is locked down in the queen's offside, so we have the luxury of being able to go king to g2, so we can bring our f rook to h1, then potentially we'll have a mating threat. That's why he took instead of the bishop taking. h5, g4, takes, h4, and then bishop to f4. Now we got this covered twice. Rook f, and we go g2 anyways. He goes knight to f8. We play the most, this is the exclam move, but there is a dubious move. Rook h1, which is dubious because it allows for black to defend. But with our knight going to e5, he can't really play here. Well, he can, but then we would take it and his pawns would be doubled, and it would just be a horrible position for black. We can even, after, let's say, place here, we take, pawn takes, queen comes in and grabs g6, and then this rook threat is a big time threat. So e5 is played. There's bishop to f5. This pins the pawn with a rook attack. So there is another move sequence that potentially is playable. Bishop to d6. Queen goes to slides over to h3 to prepare for a battery on f1. Bishop takes, rook at h1. We don't really much care if he takes that. We'll have mate on h8. So king g6, queen h7 check. king f8, bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes, c5, queen takes, h4, h8, king to e2, queen takes, g2, g7, queen takes g7, c6, queen c6, check, king g1, queen f3, and then queen to f6, queen takes, and g takes. And this is actually winning because we're up a whole pawn, and the king really has no points of entry to get in. So he really, even if he plays, he has to move his king, then we can actually activate our rook and dominate the open file if we ever need to. So there is also another line besides c5, besides bishop c5 or bishop d. There is another line of c5, pawn c5, rook at h1, f6, g takes f6, bishop takes f6, queen h3 with a threat of checkmate because the knight guards the f7 square, so it'd be a back rank mate. He takes, queen check, bishop takes, and now the g7 pawn's gonna fall because there's two pieces attacking it. There's no way to defend it. It's gonna fall. So that's why he tries to get as much counterplay as he can with bishop to c5, rook h1, bishop takes, and queen to h3, and then he plays knight g6, and the knight takes, and his opponent resigns because there's really nothing that you can do. It's going to be mate and 8, and there might even be a mate sooner than that. Like if he takes here, that's mate and 2. There was a mate in 8, but the computer did like some sort of mate here, here, and here, but it's mate in 8. So what we're gonna have to do now is we're gonna do a summary wrap up, and then we'll go into some of our puzzles. So white gets a slight, this is what it says, white gets a slight advantage versus the London line when, let's go back here, we'll get to the part where they were talking about. Oops, sorry, I gotta get rid of that. There we go. With b6, with b3. Black opts for an early b6, queen b6, and an early f5 move. So these are a little early. These two moves here. This one's early, and the bishop to f5 is early. You usually develop your knights first, or you fianchetto and develop your bishop. This is kind of a little too optimistic, in my opinion. So you got to be careful, and you have to know what to do. Don't panic. Just you know what, it may look counterintuitive to play b3, but there's really not a problem. The worst that happens if he plays queen to come on, reconnect. If he plays queen to b4, you always have the potential idea of c. Actually, that'd be a bad move. Well, no, because then, okay, yeah, c c3 is a potential idea. And then, uh-oh. Hold on a sec, guys. I think I have to go AFK just for a sec.